In today's episode, we're going to show you how to identify which printing of the Keep on the Borderlands you're looking at. And hopefully it'll be a chance to learn a few interesting things about this iconic module that you didn't know before. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. On the What Is It Wednesday series, we're going to help you identify a particular item, whether that's in your collection, something you're looking at the local gaming store, or online. We'll show you the things you can look at to identify this in less than 60 seconds, and we'll also give you some interesting little historical tidbits along the way. Hope you enjoyed the video. When I think about Dungeon Module B2, the Keep on the Borderland, a lot of adjectives and descriptives come to mind. It is the most popular, the most widely distributed, it's an iconic, introductory module, good for beginning dungeon masters, good for beginning players. It has a little bit of wilderness, has some cleverness to it, has quite a bit of dungeon adventuring, and lots of open threads of where you could go next. As they say right on the cover, this could be the foundation for your new player's campaign, where the Keep on the Borderlands becomes their home base, if you will. One of the reasons that I wanted to do a What Is It Wednesday about this is because it's one of the few adventure modules that actually has different printings that have some significant differences in it that I think are interesting. So a chance to talk about a little bit some of those differences I've learned about and share those with you so you can see the differences in them as well. It's probably also the most popular one out there, although when you look at what you're buying online, there's lots of different printings, obviously, and so I think the prices of those probably should vary from the oldest ones to the more recent ones. So I want to show you a little bit about those as well, and we'll talk about some of the other printings of this adventure module. So to start with, here is the cover. There's basically two basic covers. You've got the original one and then one that comes a little later. We'll talk about those differences. So you've got the banner up here on the top left. You've got some text here in the middle, and you've got the logo as well as the address. And here's a later version of that. You see the logo, or the banner's a little thicker. The logo changes to the Wizard and the Moon, and you also want to look at the address there. At a high level, I think there are about 9 different versions of this, 5 or 6 different iterations of the cover, and 3 different sets of illustrations inside the module. Things you want to look at to make an identification: there's some text on the cover, the logo, and the address, including where it is, the ISBN and product numbers, whether they're there and where they are, and some of the interior illustrations will be different as well. So before we start looking at all the different printings I want to talk about today, there's a pre-production version of this, meaning this is shown on the back cover of a Holmes box set as if it's what's going to be included. You'll see in the top left, instead of having a banner, it's the whole triangle is a different color. The ASEAN website talks about this. No one, to our knowledge, has ever seen one of these. Someone has rumored that perhaps this one was originally going to be brown, like the B1 remake that was done at that time, but no one's ever so far been able to produce a printed copy of this pre-production version of the adventure module. So first off, all the printings have a little bit of art and text, etc. in common. This is the top half of the front inside cover page. It has a drawing by Jim Roslof with this owlbear being attacked by the different party members. So this is the same in all of them. So this art by DSL is in all versions of this. It's a guy at the gates. And then this drawing by Errol Otis of the Mad Hermit is in all printings. That's the only 3 pieces that are in all 3 printings. Here's the first printing, so we'll go through now and look at each of these and talk about how to do it. First off, the cover's always the same. This amazing art by Jim Roslof. A thin banner, slightly thinner banner at the top left. The last sentence of the paragraph under here says, "With minor modifications, it is also suitable for use with advanced Dungeons and Dragons." That's only on the first printing. And you have the Wizard logo at the bottom. And also, under the text, three paragraphs, there's nothing there. We'll show you as we go forward. They start adding a copyright right there, starting with the second printing. Here's the rear cover. In the rear covers, the artwork's the same, but the text here changes in these, so we'll look at that as we go along. One thing that's only present in a first printing rear cover is at the very end it says, if you want a catalog, here's our address, but there's also this phrase, on a first printing, and or the name of your nearest outlet, and they offer that only on the first printing. Another thing that's unique about the first couple printings is the way they put the stats for the monsters or other things that you might fight against. I just picked a random page. This is throughout. And in the Holmes rules, they use dexterity. Once you got into the older, newer, I should say, editions of the rules, they stopped using dexterity as a stat you needed for all the opponents. But so here's the dexterity stat before you get to armor class. And we'll show a comparison of this when we get to the third print when they've changed this. So I mentioned this artwork is in the first printing. It's in all the printings. The first version I had was a fourth printing. Here's what it looks like in the fourth printing. It's up at the top of the page. There's a guy at the portcullis sort of looking up, randomly. Well, here's how it was originally designed in the layout that when DSL put this into the module. So now the guy standing at the portcullis is looking up to the left, and at the top left there, you see the guys on the ramparts. There's a soldier leaning over yelling down to him. And so the two pieces are tied together, and it looks really interesting and clever when you see it done the way it was intended. In addition, in these first printings, you have some unique art. You see here a drawing by Errol Otis. He also did this Sturge. And then there's a Minotaur, which is one of the opponents you face in the module. So here's the Minotaur with his furry legs, and he has a spear, chainmail shirt, and this guy's chomping on some kind of a turkey leg. So here's the second printing, the same thin banner at the top left. Now that sentence at the end of the first paragraph that talked about converting to AD&D is gone. And at the end of the text you see it says 1980 copyright TSR Hobbies Inc. And then here is the rear cover, which is basically the same as the first, except that the very last line at the bottom now just says, if you want a catalog, write to us. And it took out the offer to help you find your closest outlet. Inside the second printing, there's two unique pieces of art. They're only in the second printing. And so for me, if you only wanted to own one version of this, I would say the second printing is the version you should get. And again, I'll get myself out of the way so you guys can see that. So this drawing looks like a wood engraving, right, by the legendary David Trampier. And Tramp here has these coiled snakes. They're sort of like biting each other. I don't know, this only appears here. I love his art, so anything by him, I'm going to love that and want that in my collection. And then also only in the second printing is this dragon by David Sutherland. And what they did, when you look at the pages side by side, they just sort of crowded the text between the paragraphs. They shrank the spacing between paragraphs. They push it up to put that wood carving at the bottom of one page, and then push things up so you'd have room to put the dragon on the next page. Here's the third printing. And so now the banner at the top left is a little thicker, text generally the same, but we switch to the Wizard in the Moon logo down on the bottom left. Here is the rear cover, and if you go back and compare these things, some of what they're listing here now begins to change in terms of the products that are available and some other things you can see with the evolution of the products that TSR had. So again, just to point out, the banner's a little thicker, the logo is different, and for the third printing, the address is slid over right next to the logo, just like it was on the first and second printings. There it is to blow that up and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now look at the second versus the third printing, and so I'll point out just a couple things. In the third printing now, B2 is listed. The Dungeon Geomorphs, now they're advertising set 1 to 3 as a combined product, whereas in the second printing they list those out one at a time. And I'm out of the way, and you guys can pause the video here if you want to try and zoom in and look at the stuff a little closer. The Monster and Treasure assortment goes from being 3 products to 1 combined product. They change a little bit of the description to the Outdoor Geomorphs, dropping the Walled City descriptor. For some reason I don't understand. on the top right column, they've reordered. They have the same things there, but they've reordered them for some reason. Deities and Demigods is now listed as a product that it wasn't before. And in terms of the modules, they moved the order of them around a little bit, and they've added Q1, Queen of the Demon Web Pits, as a new product in here as well. The other thing I mentioned before that I want to show you here with the third printing is how the stat blocks now are changed, right? We showed you before where they had dexterity, now that's gone. Now they start just with armor class. A couple other things that are interesting. One, they've just slightly edited the text around the other things around here. Now we have F for fighter and their level. If you went back to the first printing, and I'll put that up here actually so you guys can see it. They have level 0 people here in the original printing. Now in the third printing, everybody's level 1 fighter, even though their armor class and their hit points haven't changed. Also, in the third printing, they called the creature a mountain lion. In the first two printings, they called it a puma. They've changed, it's now a 3+3 hit dice creature, although the hit points are the same. And now damage is 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 6, where before it was 3 attacks, all of which were 1 to 6. So some slight edits in the stat block, I think in keeping with some evolution of the rules as well. I also note that the Mad Hermit originally had an armor class of 6. He now has an armor class of 4. So he got a little tougher as time went on. The third printing also brings us some new art, as well as saying goodbye to all the art that was in the first two printings, except for the ones I mentioned that are in all three. So we get this new art from Jeff D., which is here the guy turned upside down, shaking out the thief's things he stacked away. And Errol Otis's picture of that Minotaur is replaced by Bill Willingham's picture of Minotaur. I have some other videos where I look at the art one by one of different great artists, and I mentioned in Bill's, this Minotaur is by far my favorite Minotaur I've ever seen in any of the any TSR art. The third printing retains the owlbear on the inside cover and these two pieces, and then that's it. That's all the art. So there's less art as we go along rather than more, which is disappointing. Here's the fourth printing. Here's what's different about it. The logo stays the same, but now the address is moved over closer to the center. Another small change here, if you look at that copyright, it used to say 1980, now it says 1980, 1981, and there's a new line under that that says Dungeons & Dragons and D&D are registered trademarks of TSR Hobbies. So those little edits are made here as well. And there it blowed up. Should have done that before I started talking about it. The address moves to the center, and it'll stay there for the next several printings, as will the addition of the 81 and the extra line about the trademark. Here's the rear cover. That changes as well. You'll notice that all that text in 2 columns and lots of different items, way simplified. Now all we're going to talk about are basic D&D items, modules B1 and B2, module X1 for the expert set, the monster and treasure assortment, the geomorphs, and the player character record sheets. That's the only products we list on here now. I mentioned to you the ISBN and product numbers, and they become important as we move forward now. You'll see an ISBN on the bottom left and nothing on the bottom right. That's how you know you've got, by looking on the back, you would know you had a fourth printing. Now let's move back to the fifth printing. Everything here on the front is the same. And here we are on the back. And so this is the difference. You got to go down here to these bottom two things. The ISBN is still there, and now on the bottom right, a product number has appeared. And that's how you know you've moved from a fourth to a fifth printing. Sixth printing, front cover, all the same. In addition, if you open it up, artwork, everything else on there, and the inside's the same too. Now we go to the back cover. Now we've got the product number and the ISBN stacked bottom left, and that's how you know you have a sixth printing. The seventh printing is kind of a unique item, fairly rare, especially if it's in this condition. They put this out, shrink wrapped it with the hanger at the top, cardboard hanger that's attached to. This is basically a sixth printing if you had it off the hanger and out of the shrink wrap, right? And you just looked at it on your desk. It's just like a sixth printing. What makes it the seventh is the fact that it was packaged and sold in this way. And if you have it like this, you probably have the rarest version if you have it shrink wrapped in the hanger. The 8th version comes along much, much later. And this is the silver anniversary version of this module. It comes out like in, I think, 1999. And it obviously has the silver anniversary symbol right in the center, as all those modules issued that year did. This one's a blend. It's the text is like the first printing, as is the logo, and of course we've got the silver anniversary on there. But then when you go to the rear cover, that's the version they started using with the 4th, 5th, 6th printings. And I would say if you look at the back layout, right, it looks like a 4th, because ISBN bottom left, nothing bottom right. There's also nowadays print on demand, and you got to be really careful if you're trying to buy something online from a store. These are, readily available, and the price is fairly fixed. People will advertise them sometimes as new, and they won't be really clear that they're print on demand reproductions. The conditions one giveaway. The cover's not attached, right? All the original AD&D modules, the cover comes off. Usually the map's printed on there, and then the booklet, is separate, standalone. But on the print on demand, they're bound on the left side and everything's connected. In addition to that, 2 other keys. One, this ISBN number barcode, that's never on the old TSR product, so that's an indication. And then your map, like I showed you, is usually detachable. This is just pages in the booklet. And if you see those things, you've got a print on demand, which is fine. If it's what you want, it's going to be cheaper. Okay. Foreign printings. There are a lot of foreign printings of this module. Like I said, most widely distributed, and lots of different iterations of this are out there. It's in, I'll go through these for you if I can. It's in German. It's in Japanese twice with some slightly different formatting. It's in German again with a new cover. We'll come back to that. See, the artwork has changed, right? You'll only see that in the overseas editions. Also in French, in Italian, twice, and then here's the artwork all blown up. This is Jim Roslof cover that he did, and for whatever reason they substituted it out in some of the foreign versions. And then the last version of this, which is done I think in the Netherlands, and that's artwork by, pretty sure that's Jeff Easley. Okay, so that's it for What Is It Wednesday. Hopefully that was interesting and informative. You guys now know how to identify all the different versions pretty easily, and you can decide which one you want. Again, my recommendation, you get printing version number 2, which has the maximum amount of art, other than it doesn't have the new Jeff D. and Willingham artwork that's added from those later editions going forward. No matter what, you absolutely have to keep in the Borderlands in your collection. It's a fantastic piece of history, and it's a fantastic adventure to play. Okay, we try to do videos all the time. I hope you guys are liking the content. Please subscribe, and if you have friends who might like the content, I hope you'll send them our way so they can subscribe as well. That's it for today's episode of What Is It Wednesday. Until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.